Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with the legendary Andy LaRocque to talk about his career, his life, everything that he's been up to, his work with King Diamond. I mean, we're going to go through everything. We're going to turn every single stone so we can get to the bottom of everything that everybody wants to know. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you doing? Happy birthday, by the way.
Yeah, today is my birthday, so thank you for making this a very special birthday for me. I'm absolutely like I don't have enough words to describe how cool it is to be able to chat with you on my birthday.
Hey, no problem, man. Happy birthday. Have a great day, man. Today, I'm sure it's going to be good.
It's going to be amazing. Like, it's already starting off on the right foot, so it cannot go. It cannot get any worse. Like, this is the best it can be, and then from now on, it's going to be a great day. Now, before we talk about your career, I want to go back a little bit to where did it all started. How old were you when you picked up your guitar? And was guitar the first instrument that you gravitated to?
Yeah, I think, at first, when I was about maybe 11 or 12, I kind of looked at, the drums a little bit, but I never really played any drums. But I just thought it was a cool instrument, but maybe a couple of months later, I just picked up my dad's acoustic guitar, and I thought, hey, man, this is pretty cool, and well, I just took it from there, I guess, So I guess I was about 11 or 12 years old when I first picked up the guitar.
Did you take any professional lessons, or did you kind of learn on your own, or maybe your dad gave you a few hints on how to get started?
No, not really. I mean, he could play a few chords, but that's about it, But what I was doing at that time, listening to the bands around me at that time, in that era, in the 70s, it was like Status Quo, a British band, I was a big fan of them. And all the glam bands back then, like Sweet, Slade, T-Rex, all the bands that were around at that time, later got into Blue Oyster Cult, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Nazareth, of course, things like that, So that really gave me a boost to, pick up the guitar and learn some more stuff, And I never took any lessons, really, I mean, we went to one of those schools, for maybe once or twice, me and a friend. But I said, hey, man, I don't want to play this. I want to play rock and roll, I want to play the stuff that they teach there, So, no, forget about that, We want to play some cool stuff, So we quit like after one or two times,
Wow. Back then, there was no YouTube, there was no internet, so there was no way for you to go online and see what other people were doing and kind of learn that way, which is a lot easier for aspiring guitar players now that they can just kind of learn on their own in their basement in their house. So how did you do it? Did you play the music and you try to imitate it on the guitar on your own in your own room?
Exactly. That's how it started. I tried to copy things, and it wasn't that successful all the time, of course, because I mean, all the good guitarists had their own styles and stuff. So it kind of became a blend between different guitarists, at the end, So I guess that's how I, got into the style I'm playing now, a blend of different styles, and I made it my own, I believe.
And who were those first guitar players that really inspired you, that became like your calling card, if you will, of the go-to in order to improve your own style and create your own flair?
Well, to get back to the beginning, I think, Status Quo, the British band, was a great inspiration for me because I thought, the rhythm guitars there were just amazing, and also AC/DC, and then we're talking about, I was like 12, 13 years old when I started listening to them, So I started out with listening to kind of rhythm guitars, solid rhythm guitar. And I've always been a fan of a good, solid rhythm section. And after that, I got into, of course, Michael Schenker, for the solos and the melodic stuff. And Randy Rhoads was also a great inspiration, definitely, And later on, Steve Vai, Brad Gillis did some great stuff with Ozzy Osbourne, I thought. Yngwie Malmsteen, and from there, I just
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 get
took off, I guess,
just kept growing. How old were you when you felt like you were that this was a path that you wanted to take? Like I feel like I'm good enough. I can even get better, and this is something that I want to do for a living. I want to play guitar. I want to be a musician.
I think that thought kind of grew on me when I was about 13 years old, actually. I I remember I was down in the basement with a friend of mine. He was the bass player in that band, and I played the guitar. And we put up like spotlights and stuff, listening to Kiss, and put up our guitars and said, "Man, this is what I want to do, man. This is really cool. We should definitely be, rock stars one day, or musicians at least, So that was very early. I was 13 years old, I believe.
Wow, that was really early on. You knew right away. Like you got the bug early, and you knew that this is going to be your path.
Yeah, kind of a built-in compass. I mean, this is what you're going to do, and I always, aimed at that, definitely. Even though I'm a kind of a person that I'm not really like 24 hours a day working with music. I really need to do a lot of other things, like whatever. I mean, working on my house, trimming things, whatever,
Doing some
and just different things to be able to be inspired. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
If I was only doing like music like 24 hours a day, it wouldn't be the same, definitely.
Yeah, you would probably burn out a little bit of being
Yeah,
of always doing the same thing over and over again.
exactly. And I kind of still do because, when I'm not working on my own music, I've got the studio, which you can see behind me here, where I produce a lot of other bands and record other bands. So it's going to be long days sometimes, but after I've been in a project with a band, I usually take a little break where I can get back to my own style, and work on my own songs and all that, and you really need that little break in between to, well, get the inspiration back, kind of thing.
And recharge. So the question of the hour for me is how did it all started with King Diamond? How did that relationship build, and how did you see yourself being on that first record, and then on every record from that point on?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short, right? Okay. Me and Mickey D, we played in the same band for a short while in Gothenburg. This was back in, I believe, 1984. And we have been friends, before that, we've been friends for a couple of years. And then we just jammed, a few times, and we were in the same band for a very short time. And then he just joined some guys, kind of partly Swedish and partly Danish. And he moved down to Denmark. And then he got in contact with King, Michael Denner, and Timmy Hansen. And this was when Merciful Fate kind of broke up, and King wanted to start something new. And then Mickey was asked to join the band together with Michael Denner and Tim Hansen. And they had this Swedish guitarist that really didn't work out in the studio when they came into the studio for recording Fatal Portrait. This was like early 1985. So after a couple of weeks in the studio, Mickey called me and said, "Hey, Andy, you really need to come down here, because we really need a good guitarist coming down here and doing the things here." And I said, "Wow, interesting," And I've been following what they've been doing because I had a good contact with Mickey at the time, and he told me what was happening around. I mean, rehearsing and going into the studio and all that. So I said, "Okay, I'll quit my job tomorrow and I'll come down." So I called my boss. I was working at a music store at that time, and he was like, "Wow, you can't do that." Well, I got a replacement, so I got this guy, he's coming in tomorrow. So I just took my Marshall 50-watt Marshall head and a guitar, took the train down to Copenhagen, met the guys in the studio. This was like a big move for me, of course, because it was a big thing, I mean, doing an audition for some guys I never even met before, but I still guess I was kind of relaxed, I just thought, okay, it's now or never, but
Sink
I
or
just
swim.
I just felt that, I did what I could, and they wanted me to play a few takes on a song called Dressed in White. So I hooked up my amp, and my cabinet, and I played along with it a few times, and after a while, they had a little kind of short meeting and they said, "Hey, you're in the band."
That must have felt good, considering that you had just quit your job.
That was awesome, man. I mean, sometimes you feel like there are things you just have to do, I mean, and this was one of those things that, it's like now or never. I gotta try it out, I gotta do this,
And that started your relationship and your activity in the band with King Diamond. So I have to ask you a very difficult question, because it's almost like asking you which one is, if you have multiple kids, which one is your favorite kid. But when you look at the discography of King Diamond, what album is the one that's dearest to you, and what album was the one that caused you the most problems, or that was the one that was most difficult for you?
Oh, wow. I would say Abigail is one of my favorite albums because we did a few tours before we recorded that album, and we kind of got together as good friends and we knew each other as musicians. And we just had a great feel on that whole album. I mean, the atmosphere and everything was just the good atmosphere we had together as a band at that time is just captured in that album, together with the great story, the great lyrics, and the music. I mean, if you going back and listen to it, I still, get goosebumps sometimes, listen to it. Wow. Because I remember the feel, the overall thing we had at that time, I remember, for example, I was sitting away in a corner of the studio, which was a pretty big studio, with just a lit candle recording my solos, and that was just a great feeling, a little kind of cozy, but still a little, dark
Yeah.
feeling to it, But the overall feel was just amazing, on that album, And then one of the hardest albums, it might have been Spider's Lullaby, actually, because we had a new band, we had a totally new environment, recording it in the US with a totally different producer. Um, I mean, difference. Everything was just different, So that was just hard. And also after a break, because we didn't do anything in about 4 years, we didn't really have a record deal in the early 90s. And then when we got back, everything was just new. So I guess coming back and trying to find the right track on Spider's Lullaby, that was really hard,
Yeah.
Even though
Like
great songs and everything, and we had a good time and everything, but I still think there was something missing on that
missing.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to re-find that chemistry, considering like all the changes that happened, everything that was done before. That album is almost like a brand new, almost like a debut record, if you will, in a
Yeah,
certain sense. It feels like almost a debut record.
I agree. Even though I mean the songs and the lyrics and
And I
everything
love
is,
the album. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely
yeah,
love
yeah,
the record.
I agree. There's
It
just
just
that
has,
little thing missing
yeah.
compared
There's
to
there's
the
there,
previous
there's
albums.
exactly, there's something, and I can't really put my finger on. Abigail is also my favorite record. I actually did a video with a couple of guys from Insiferum and Sorcerer, and we had like a top five King Diamond albums of all time, and all three of us agreed that Abigail is the best King Diamond album. At least it's our favorite, for
Yeah,
whatever that is worth. There's just something special about that record.
yeah, I agree.
Now, moving a little bit deeper into your work with the band, what is the most rewarding aspect of working in King Diamond?
Wow, that's a tricky question, man. Um, I guess it's to be able to write the music we do, and nobody's telling the other guy like we should have a style like this or a style like that. I mean, that's really rewarding, I think. I mean, we just do what comes out, if you know what I mean. I mean, what we feel like, which is great. And also, I mean, to be able to do what we do with touring and all that, I mean, the what do you say? Um, the creativity, the free creativity with everything in the band, actually, comes from designing a T-shirt to stage show, which I always been a fan of from the very early days of my career when I was like 12, 13 years old, like creating a big kind of theatrical style, And now we get together and, design all this stuff, which is great. So I mean, the overall picture of the band is great. I mean, very creative.
The career of the band, there's still many years ahead. There's still going to be many more King Diamond albums ahead. But as you look back at the legacy that this band has, what do you think King Diamond means to the metal world, and what do you think it represents to the metal world?
Well, we've been doing this for about 36 years now. I mean, this summer, and I would say it's a very unique style. We always have been doing our style without, as I said earlier, nobody's telling us what we should do. We just do what we do, and I really think that people appreciate that. And in the long run, I think that has been really good for us to do that, and that's what we hear from fans too. I mean, I'm really glad, guys, that you stuck to your own style and not like, looking at anyone else, just do your thing, and in the long run, I think that's really important.
Yeah, sticking to your guns, not changing depending on how the weather goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Changing a little bit over from King Diamond, I want to take you into a different topic now, and that is death and Chuck Schuldiner. I watched the latest documentary that's out there, and I was surprised because I didn't know you worked on individual thought patterns. So when that part of the documentary came on, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but they talk very highly of you, and that you came in and you just blew everybody out of the water. Like it was like it was a coming to Jesus moment if you're the religious kind. So I was blown away by how gracious everybody was in the documentary, and by how highly they spoke of you and of your guitar playing. What do you take from that experience of working on that album?
I thought it was great because at that time we didn't really do anything with King Diamond. We had like a little break, no record deal at the time, working on it, but everything was like not happening, at that time. And I thought, why not try something different, So I actually got this request from Chuck by our record company at that time, Road Racer Records in New York. And Monty called me up and said, "Hey, Andy, what do you think about doing this stuff? Going over to Florida for, a week or two, and lay down some solos, And I thought, sure, why not? Let's do it, So they sent me, demos of the songs, and listened through it, and worked out a few ideas to it, And then a couple of weeks later, went over to Tampa, Florida, where I met Chuck and the other guys, some of the other guys, because some of the guys were done already with the session. Like Gene Hoglan, he was flying home the day before I came in. But, I had a great time in Florida, and me and Chuck got together really, really good. And they were the nicest guy, they were really nice to me. And just recording my stuff when there were gaps, and turned out good, I guess, and it seems like people really, really appreciate it.
I have to ask you this because the impression that they gave us, and this is your chance to come clean, all right? So the impression that they gave us is that you didn't prepare that much coming in, and you show up there and you grab the guitar and you're like, okay, what about this solo? And you just pulled something, and they're like, holy crap, that's like the best thing we've heard. and they're like, well, but I can do it a little bit better. Let me do this one. And it's almost like you were improvising on the spot, and every single one was better than the previous one. And that was one of the things that impressed everybody. It impressed me when I was watching the documentary. I couldn't believe it. Is this really true? Like, did you improvise a lot, or were you prepared and you were just trying to really impress the guys?
No, not really. I mean, what I try to do always when I compose a solo, because that's what I call it, I have a basic idea of the solo, like a melody line usually, that's combined with some fast runs here and there, depending on, the background, of course, But so I had a basic idea of what I could maybe use on the parts. But if they want to change something, they just, let me know, and I did like an alternative take of that, So they're pretty much, I had a lot of things worked out already with alternatives, if you know what I mean, because you got to be ready to change a few things, if they don't like it, or maybe they have something else in mind and stuff, So,
You have
but
to be able to.
I'm glad they like it. I'm glad they liked it.
I mean, it was impressive when that part of the documentary came on. I was blown away. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, they spoke very highly of you, and it really speaks volumes to your talent and your creativity that you're able to adapt like that, and also understand that at the end of the day, you're working for their record, so it has to match their vision of what those songs need to be. So you have to be a little bit flexible with what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree, man.
Now, moving on into one of the things that you're doing a lot these days, which is working with other artists, producing and working in the studio. How much of that you take into yourself, into the way you play? Has that changed a little bit of who you are as a musician, working with other musicians on that deeper level?
Definitely, because I mean, working with different style, even though working with different styles, I would say, when there are bands coming into the studio, it can be everything from like folk music, metal, to rock and black metal, to death metal. So you kind of pick up a few things here and a few things there, and especially if there's some extremely good musicians, which there are, of course, in the different bands. You pick up things, I mean, definitely. So hopefully that has made me a better musician,
Is it a trickle
listening
down
to
effect?
those guys, coming into the studio. Definitely.
How did you decide to get into producing? Was it working with other bands, filling in, doing some session work? Did that kind of plant the bug in you, or was just working in the studio with King Diamond perhaps that's where things kind of started for you, developing and wanting to be more on the other side of the glass?
Well, to start with, I remember the first times we were in the studio, I just hated when Mickey was pounding the drums for the sound check like a day on the toms. What the fuck, man? What's that? I just hated that, and I said, "Oh God, this is boring." I just want to play. Come on, let's. It sounds good. Let's go for it. But after a while, or I would say a couple of albums, and you were kind of picking up what the producers and the engineers were doing, and thought, "Hey, man, that's cool. You use that mic to get that sound, and move the mic in a different position, and small tricks that you kind of slowly picked up, And after a couple of years, it was time to write songs. I only had like a Walkman, with a microphone on. I thought, hey man, this kind of sucks, I need something a little more sophisticated at least, So I bought my first Porta studio, like a cassette tape Porta studio. And it kind of started from there, I mean, to be able to layer tracks, guitars and maybe a drum machine, and maybe put some bass on too. So I could present something a little bit better for the guys in the band instead of just like a guitar riff on a Walkman, which was kind of boring. So it's actually started there, and I got more and more interested in the studio work. And when people heard my first recordings on that portable, machine, they said, "Hey man, that sounds really good. Would you be able to record my band?" And sure, I'm just going to get like a little bigger mixer, kind of thing.
A little bit bigger Walkman.
Yeah, exactly. And a few mics, and I'll do that, and I kind of started from there, and then after a while, I got funds big enough to kind of get a professional tape machine, and a console, with more tracks and channels, more microphones, and kind of building it up from there, So that's how we started, from being just bored when Mickey was doing his toms, until, producing bands now. And I've been doing this for like 26 years now.
How do you define your role, and what do you try to give bands that seek you for that role?
I always try to, take out the best of the band, to try to find, making the best out of their style, if you know what I mean. Because every band has a unique style most often, So I just try to make them play the best they can. And if they have a unique style, I just try to
Enhance it.
Enhance it, exactly. I'm not trying to make a band sound like another band, Like I know some studios, they have like, when the bands come in, they have a set kind of presets, you know what I'm saying, of a sound. And this is the studio, and you get exactly this sound every time, no matter what band you are in, and what style you have. I never really wanted to work like that. I try to keep the uniqueness of every band, and so every band turns out different, that I have in the studio, good and bad,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're not trying to create the Andy and LaRocque sound. You're trying to create whatever their sound is, making it better, and therefore specifically geared towards whoever the band is that you're working on that specific day. It's less about you and more about their end product.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, it's got to be within the frames of sounding good, of course, So if there's things that needs to be fixed, which there always are, of course, and adjusted, I talk to the band, and, we just get together and, make the best possible product out of it, So they are happy, and I'm happy with what I'm doing too,
Yeah, because you have your name attached to it at the end of the day as well. So there's always a little bit of pride in it.
Yeah, of course.
I have one last question for you, and that is, looking at the roles that you have, which one is the most rewarding? Lead guitarist, producer?
I love both, man. I really do, because being out on the road for like 2 months, it's awesome. Being out with King Diamond, I really, really love that. Being on the road. And then after a while, at the end of the tour, kind of, oh man, I'm looking back, I'm looking forward to going back into the studio again, And usually before the Corona crap, I have a schedule with a lot of bands, coming into the studio, which is not that much right now. It's coming in slowly, but, it's since obviously, the bands can't really fly over here, everything is like closed. But the last tour we did, I was kind of looking forward going back to the studio too, So it's kind of a combination of both things, actually. After being in the studio for like 6 months, you're looking forward to go out on the road again, And so you have like one foot in each camp, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have two hats that you wear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perhaps doing both roles, playing guitar and producing, gives you a much better understanding or appreciation for that role of the producer when you were the one sitting in the recording your guitars.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's really important, and what people say about me as a producer is that, I'm very relaxed, really easy to work with. And that's probably because, I've been on the other side the glass window, you know, too. So I know exactly how it is to be there, you know. And I'm really trying to create, you know, a really relaxed atmosphere here in the studio too. So people, like, when they come in, you know, the heartbeat goes down a bit, you know, take it easy, take it easy. It's gonna be great recording, you know, and that's what people tell me too, you know, it's really easy to work here, you know.
Well,
So
I
definitely have that understanding of, you know, both
both sides.
sides. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that gives you a unique perspective that really helps the bands and helps you as well as a musician, understanding exactly what each side is going through and what each side wants from their own individual roles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
Andy, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. You made my birthday super special. So thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I really appreciate it. All the best to you, and hope to see you on the road soon with a new King Diamond album around the corner.
We hope so too. Have a great birthday, man. Take
Thank
it
you very
easy.
much. Take care.